Okay, I get it. I get it. You're a creative. I get it. You are an innovator. I get it. But here's the thing. You still got to follow the rules. You still have to follow the rules. What do I mean? All right. So I know that LinkedIn typically has like a 20-second lag. So I want to wait a little bit before I get into this because there is this misconception that in order to be this super creative genius, you have to break all of the rules and somehow everything just kind of falls in place. It's a lie. Let me tell you why it's a lie. When I think of people like Pablo Picasso, we're going to talk about Clayton Christensen as well, the late great Clayton Christensen. He actually is the one that I don't know if he coined the term, but he really did some seminal work on disruptive innovation. We're going to talk about all of those things, okay? And the reason why is because when you think of somebody like Picasso, you think of this person who thinks outside of the box. So no pun intended, because he did create Cubism. But do y'all know that before he created Cubism, he actually studied and was an apprentice? Well, I don't know if the word is apprentice, but he practiced drawing and painting in the classical sense. Let me look for what the actual phrase is. Classical art. He had early training in classical art. And so what he first did, y'all, I want y'all to hear me out because some of y'all are going to get stuck, especially, let me tell y'all, especially as the year is starting to progress. Some of you are thinking you got to do something that's fresh, new, novel, innovative. Start with what you got, follow the rules, and then you can break the rules. So he first mastered traditional drawing, he mastered traditional painting techniques, and then it started to lay the foundation for his later groundbreaking styles, such as Cubism. I don't know if y'all have ever seen Cubism before. Let's take a look at Cubism. Cubism, Pablo Picasso. I don't even need to put in Pablo Picasso for Cubism, but I just want y'all to see what Cubism looks and feels like. We're actually going to kind of go through this, I guess, art appreciation type situation right now. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to go to, and I'm just going to look at them right quick. Boom. Okay. Y'all take a look at what Cubism is and what it looks like. Oh, man. It looks so different from traditional drawing and painting. I like this. But here's the thing, y'all. Picasso didn't start here. He didn't start with this. He didn't start with eyes being asymmetrical, and he did not start. I think this is actually Pablo Picasso himself, actually. He didn't start here. You know what he started with? Traditional. I'm going to put here classical art. This is what he started with, where things were more realistic. Perhaps it was even Renaissance classical art. And if anybody's in the chat, if you have more insight in this, of course, I can, of course, Google this and research this myself. But we're doing this live. I didn't expect to do this, but now we're doing it to take a look at what Picasso started from. He started from this kind of artwork, y'all. Like, and not just doing it. I don't know nothing classical about this right here. What's this? I think this is like episode 1 situation. Anyway, the Star Wars. This is what he started with, and then this is what he ended up to. Let me go back. This is what we see. He broke the rules, but he first had to understand what the rules were. Understand what the rules are first, y'all. I'm telling you, it is boring. It is mundane sometimes, but there's something unique in learning and following. I know that sounds so, it probably irked y'all when you read the title for some of y'all, follow the rules, right? It's because you begin to get an appreciation for the journey. It's not about the rules themselves. It's about the process. When I say journey, it's the process of getting to whatever that destination is. In Picasso's example, it's going to be that final piece that was in the traditional sense, being able to replicate something with the media of oil, acrylic, pencils, whatever it was. And so that's what we're talking about when we look at Picasso, because once he internalized the fundamentals, he was able to challenge and then to transcend them, ultimately shaping modern art, y'all. And that's the thing. So mastering the basics, I want y'all to hear me out. Mastering the basics empowers those of you who consider yourselves innovators. It empowers an innovator to break them meaningfully and successfully. There's too many people around here now, maybe even in 2025. There's too many people around here that's just breaking rules just to break rules. You're doing things differently just for the sake of doing things differently. Stop it. Understand them first so that when you do deviate, it's not that you're totally neglecting or negating everything that you've learned. That's not what Picasso did. He was able to now take what he's learned and to manipulate, and yes, to break certain like the symmetry of a face and making it asymmetrical, but it still looks like a face. He was able to do that by learning the fundamentals first. All right. So with Clayton Christensen was a really, 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 really uh, uh, important person when it came to understanding disruptive innovation. And the reason why is because oftentimes when people think of innovation, they think of new, they think of exciting. When you think of a startup that is innovative and it disrupts the market, you're thinking that they created a new product that undercuts the incumbent or the current established company, the big companies, right? That's not what disruptive innovation is about, y'all. So we looked at Picasso for a little bit, understanding that he mastered the fundamentals of classical drawing, classical painting, and then he was able to redefine, or really to shape, not redefine, but to shape modern art through movements like Cubism. Clayton Christensen, he now has this theory of disruptive innovation. And here's what he breaks down, because this is super important. It's an innovation that creates a new market. So yes, there is newness, but this is how a new market and value network, and eventually then disrupts an existing market, displacing the established market leading firms. What does that mean? Because that's a lot. That's a lot. Well, let me break it down to you. When you have disruptive innovation, it's this process. Y'all could Google this. It's this process where a smaller company challenges an established business by entering a market's low end, and then they move up market. In other words, it's not about breaking the rules as much as first deeply understanding the market. You have to understand the rules first. And in some instances, you don't necessarily need to follow the rules. I know that's in the title. Sometimes you need to deeply understand them, understand what's happening before you even choose to figure out or choose to decide to go against the grain. So what do? First, you enter at the low end. And a lot of people, when they think of innovation, they don't think about the fact that there is you have to enter through a low barrier of entry, where you can get the masses in a sense. And many times it's not about a new product. Oftentimes this disruptive innovation is about cost. It's cheap. You can have the same product or a service, but you found a way to either remove the middleman or to make it cheaper. What do I mean by that? Take a look at Uber, take a look at Airbnb, take a look at Uber Eats or DoorDash. Take a look at any of these companies that aren't transportation. Uber is not a transportation company. Airbnb is not a hospitality company. DoorDash is not a food company. You know what they are? They're tech companies that are able to leverage the markets that already exist, and they make it more convenient to access the things that you actually want. Disruptive. That's what made it disruptive. Uber didn't say, you know what? Let's create a new car for Uber, and we will just have Uber cars that are going to drive around people. Let's make our own line of taxis. Let's use cars that already exist. Even better, let's take people's own cars Let's take people to sign up using their own cars to take other people around. So the reason why this is important is because oftentimes, and you're probably going to come across this, especially as this year continues, where you think you have to do something new in your routine. You think you have to do something dramatically different, and you don't. You just need to leverage what already exists in a new way, in a different way, maybe not even new, in a different way for you to, in a sense, upend your old market. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit more personal now. That's important because it'll get you out of your head from thinking that I need to create something entirely new and entirely different in my personal life or in my professional life. Maybe there's a decision that needs to be made. Y'all go ahead and check out the conversation that I had with Jeff Opperman yesterday. He is what we called the guy behind the guy. Those are the most powerful people, the individuals who help C-level people make their decisions. Yeah, Jeff was one of them. And so we had that conversation yesterday. And here's the thing. You don't need to create something new oftentimes. You just need to leverage what already exists, deeply understanding how it works, and then repurpose. Some of y'all for 2025, it's about repurposing. It is not about creating some new routine, some new habit, maybe not even a new goal. You take the same goal that you didn't hit in 2023, and now you're figuring out a different way to approach it. Okay, so you enter the low end, and then what you end up doing is you move up market. So the smaller company improves its offerings. They eventually appeal to the incumbent's mainstream customers. How? Because when you enter the low end, you are usually having a product or service, like I mentioned before, that's less expensive. It's more accessible. Think of the Ubers and the Airbnbs. Airbnb didn't say, you know what, let's create a line of hotels and brand them Airbnb. Nope. Let's use people's homes. Better yet, let's have people want to use their homes to do the same thing that the hospitality business is making billions off of. DoorDash. Let's create our own brand of DoorDash snacks and I don't know, dairy and meats and potatoes, whatever, bread, so people can go to the DoorDash store. No, now there are DoorDash spots, but guess what's in there? It's not DoorDash food, y'all. It's the same food that you can find at a Publix, Kroger's, CVS, whatever it is. Like, you can go there, Walmart, right? And now what you're doing is they're leveraging a couple of things. They're leveraging other people's transportation and the food that already exists so that it comes to you more accessibly, where you don't have to leave to go get that, I don't know, that late night snack that you're looking for. By the way, I don't condone late night snacks because I can't have them at the moment. So neither should you. Just saying. Okay. So here's the thing. You enter low end. It's usually cheaper and more accessible, convenient. You then start to move up market, and then you displace the actual incumbent, right? That's the pre-existing. That's the existing company that's just kind of been, sitting there. So, those big titans, those conglomerates, the wee little startup comes up, makes it cheaper, makes it more accessible, and starts to undercut them. And so the smaller company, what they do is they displace the incumbent by taking away the primary source of revenue. First, they take away their people, and then they take away the revenue. Because you take away the people, the market, you're also taking away the revenue. And that's what creates the disruption. At the end of the day, you're moving people away, but you're not taking away the money, which is kind of weird to say, but I don't know if that's a possibility. Then you haven't really disrupted the market. Because in a market like that, it boils down to the dollar or the yen or the pound or the euro, I guess. It boils down to money. All right. So it's disruptive because it reshapes the customer expectations in it. And what it does is it forces industries to then evolve. Y'all remember the upheaval that the taxi companies had, the transportation industry had because of Uber. Oh my goodness. Banned, probably still banned in certain countries. So if there's not an evolution, there may be upset, literal upset, right? Not the sports type of upset. This team upset the other team. I didn't really know sports. So when I heard something that was being upset in that way, I was like, who made who angry? Disruptive innovation, you can really make people angry. And so what it also does is it helps entrepreneurs to find opportunities to disrupt industries because it's almost like this sense of inspiration. Like, oh wow, if they can do it, let's do it too. And then you create a new level or a new pool in a sense of competitors. DoorDash now has Uber Eats, now has I think even before DoorDash there was um Grubhub, I think. And before Grubhub, I think there was one in I think Seamless. I think that might just be like a New York only one. Um, Seamless, Grubhub, there's DoorDash, there's Uber Eats, different competitors now doing the same thing. Remember when Apple Pay came out and then Google Pay? And listen, shameless with the naming too. Do y'all see that? Shameless with the naming, where you would still use the same nomenclature, same title for the service. Well, there's Apple Pay. Let's call it Google Pay. Why? Because we don't want people to get confused as to what Google Pay is about. So in order for us to successfully compete against the I guess in this case it would be kind of like the incumbent, right? We need to have a comparable name so that people can know which one to choose. There should be no confusion. It can also help professionals avoid choosing the wrong strategy. All right. So a few examples. A good one, of course, the iPhone, right? Disrupting not just the mobile market, but the laptop market too, because they offered cheaper, simpler products that was open to a lot of apps. You know, it's funny that they disrupted because I don't know if you can consider BlackBerry a smartphone, but boy, did it disrupt. I think we talked about it a little bit, but if we didn't, the fact that BlackBerry was still on top even when the iPhone was introduced, and they had a chance, they had the opportunity to build at least quickly a competitor, a competing app store market, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. I don't know if it was pride. I don't know what it is. When I think of certain companies like Kodak and some others where, it makes me wonder at the C level what they were thinking. And I wonder if it is really about pride. I do wonder why you may not necessarily be leading, but man, should you follow? Because that's where things are going and you don't want to be left behind. I don't know. Maybe it is. Y'all can chime in and ideate with me as to why it is. I just want to think about the business aspects of why a company won't pivot. I know that the larger the company, the longer it takes to shift, but my goodness, when it's time to cut losses and to let go of people or whatnot, oh, are people quick, right? But then when it's time to make innovations that will impact different departments and, I guess increase budgeting for making this product or the service that already exists in this new place, and maybe they're not sure whether or not it's going to work. I don't know what it is, but I like to humanize a lot of it, coming down to like the raw emotions, and pride I think being one of them. Like, you know what, that's just a phase. We don't need to follow their trend. We've been here for so long doing what we've done. Now, like I said, there are probably other business aspects as well that we can dive into, but I want to humanize a lot of this stuff that people tend to make very ethereal, shrouded around the MBA, so to speak. And I can say that because, well, for one, I've got one, and for two, you don't need one to understand some of this stuff, right? You really don't. All right, so here it is. Christensen, he breaks down, helps us to understand disruptive innovation and a few things that's helpful to understand, like how the elements of innovation happen. The first is customer focus. True disruption often starts by targeting the overlooked customer segments. Oftentimes, unfortunately, the bigger a company gets, sometimes, not all the time, they start to stop listening to, it's maybe harder. The bigger the company gets is because there's more of a customer base, and it can be easy if they're not adamant, if they're not vigilant with this, it can be easy to lose track of the different customer segments that they do have. Makes it easier for a smaller company to come in, a startup to come in and say, ooh, this particular segment right here is not getting love. Let's go ahead and build something for them. Let's either lower the cost, let's either make the thing more accessible. But do you see that you have to understand the rules first? What are the rules to this market? What are they used to doing? Deeply understanding that. And then, like Picasso, you can meaningfully break it. And in this case, breaking it means making something less costly or making something more accessible. I know it sounds simple, but in essence, that's what you're doing. Having a clear value proposition. So, if you consider yourself an innovator, innovations provide solutions at a lower cost or with new convenience factors, and you have to be able to articulate that value proposition super clearly. It has to be evident. It's got to be like, we get it. The customer saying, oh, we get it. Yeah. Yeah, we love this. Yes. It's got to be immediate as far as the value that they would feel. Scalability, successful, except for immediate, depending on the market. Because there are get rich quick schemes, get your body fit quick schemes. Like there are a whole bunch of other like immediate value props that are out there, which is not really valuable at all. There's some things that take time, right? But even in the midst, let's just take I don't know, physical fitness, for example. Maybe there's a market of people that feel as if they don't have their specific needs, I don't know, in a particular, I don't know, whatever, needs met in how they're going through the process of trimming the body, the belly fat, let's say. And they're looking for, a more tailored or targeted program or plan, or whatever the case is, or maybe the plans are too expensive, whatever it is. So you come up with a tech, or you come up with something that makes it more easy, right? So maybe it's more easily accessible or something for them to be more engaged into shredding visceral fat around the abdomen. I don't know. Okay. But that's what value prop is. You want to make sure that the value proposition is super clear. And once again, it's focused on usually lowering the cost or having some convenience factors. There are multiple convenience factors. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's got to be convenient and or it has to be cheaper. Usually it's both if you really want to disrupt the market. And scalability. Your innovative disruption is not effective. It's not successful if it's not scalable. So what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to challenge and surpass the incumbents. Many times it doesn't surpass, but it should for sure challenge it, where they can see you as a threat. And guess what they want to do? They want to buy you out. Like Meta or Facebook at the time wanting to buy Instagram for a cool $1 billion. Y'all remember that? Yeah. Challenge, right? Okay. So listen to me. Even disruptive innovators rely on an understanding of existing market structures, of customer or consumer behaviors, and also organizational processes. You cannot do this effectively if you don't know it. So here's what this means. Because as innovative as people like to think Steve Jobs is, he was not the designer. He was not the CDO, the chief design officer. Johnny Ive was. Like there are people that you need to have. If you're looking, here's another thing. You're going to need some people in your corner. You're talking about having an innovative 2025 for your personal self, for your personal life. There may be things that you specifically have a clear vision for, but you may not have expertise in that area. We talked about that yesterday. We talked about the C-level decision that was made to go into a new market. Successful C-level executives that left their growing hospital network to start from scratch and needed some experts in place. Marketing, branding, HR, finance. Like they needed all the people in place in order for that startup to be successful. They knew how to grow one. They didn't know how to start one, and they needed people in their corner. You're going to need some people in your corner too. At the very least, you're going to need accountability. It's super important because if you don't understand a particular process, you're going to need individuals who understand that process so that you can make some disruption in your own life. Listen, you've been trying this thing for the last 5 years and it's not been working. You know why? Because as much as you've been trying this new thing, this new thing, and that new thing, you haven't fully understood the process. Get somebody who understands the process. Hell, Google it. It's there. Find a virtual mentor. Find a YouTube channel, something that's going to help you to better understand what it is and why it is. You can't even break through just yet. Make this be the year. Knowledge of current constraints. Oh my goodness. The fact that people think that constraints are a negative thing. But when you have a knowledge of the current constraints, it helps you to create or to design solutions that effectively circumvent or to even overturn them. Listen, it's important. It's important to understand what are the limitations. Some of the best inventions come from having the most limitations. So the first thing is when you understand the rules first, it actually establishes your credibility. It helps people to know that you have mastered the fundamentals. Let's talk about Steve Jobs again. Y'all know that he was fired from his own company first, right? And then he was rehired after my guy created another startup. What was it, Next or something like that? And it started to do better than Apple. And they're like, yo, we need Steve back, man. We can't do this thing without jobs. We will not have jobs if we don't bring back jobs. And so they brought him back. And the first thing that Mr. Jobs did, I don't care if you like him as a person or whatever, first thing that he did was he nixed about 80% of Apple's product line. And they were losing, I think, was it about like 3 mil or something like that in the first year? It's a crazy number, which would make people think that, oh my God, what is he doing? He's intentionally sabotaging the company. No, he was making space, but he understood the fundamentals. He understood how this was supposed to work. And the first thing he realized is that we have too much stuff. Tell me I got too much clutter already in 2025. Cut it down, cut it out, cut it down. Too much stuff. And because you have too much stuff, what's going to happen is you're going to be like the apple that was starting to sink. Too many products, too many resource allocations, just kind of being spread thin, and there is no focus. You need focus. So Picasso understood it. Jobs understood it. LeBron James understands it. There's a lot of people. I can name. Hate naming celebrities now because man, there's drama or scandal around almost every one of them now. But I'm trying to name people that you might recognize. Clayton Christensen, you know him now, understood it. Mastering the fundamentals. Because like these individuals, these innovators who demonstrate competence in current best practices are more likely to earn trust and buy-in from stakeholders. Why? Because they've been in the trenches. They understand how the thing works. They're able to empathize with those who aren't looking to innovate anything at all. But it's like, you know what? We were there. We were sitting next to you when we were working together. We know that you understand this thing, whatever it is, the infrastructure, the product, the service. It most times come from the inside. It doesn't come from the outside. A lot of people want to play the savior, even of their own lives, to storm in from the outside and save whatever it is, save the company, overturn the market, transform their lives. How you gonna come from the outside of your own life to transform your life when there's everything that you need inside, and all you need to do is to start, first of all, realistically tracking what has been your system already, what has been your process already, currently, that's causing you to not hit certain goals. Because what's happening is you're probably bringing in some program or somebody else, and you're bringing them in and trying to fix certain things. And I know I just said, to bring somebody in to help you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're just blindly buying the new year, new me product when the one from last year you didn't even use. Start tracking your routine, start assessing, become more self-aware, assessing habits, behaviors so that you can understand where it is that you need to put your focus. Nix the 80%. Get super focused. Mastering the fundamentals creates credibility. It also creates or builds confidence because whether if it's team members or investors, they're more comfortable supporting new ideas when the person shows they can excel in the existing framework. Remember when I was a young lad working part-time for a retail company and only had been there for a few weeks, and I had already come up with an entire structure to help. I think it was like a something about the timesheets or something. And I will give myself some credit. I quickly understood some of the process before doing it, but before doing that, I stayed in the process before actually presenting this. Now, in hindsight, I could probably waited a little bit more to start bringing up some of the problems, but I listened to what other people were saying, and then I presented this to the manager. Funny enough, the manager that I gave it to was an interim manager at the time who was working in New York. And he was like, "Oh, let me see that." He took it. He took it from me. Never saw him again or it again. The point is, though, the point is, I was still also kind of working out the patience of sitting in or learning a job long enough to then start bringing solutions or bringing ideas. Master it first. Some of you guys, you come in and you immediately know what a challenge is. So when I've gotten older, this is what I've developed. When I get into a new team, sometimes it's quick. It's easy for me to understand what the challenges are. The question is making the change urgent and important, or is it important but not necessarily urgent? Where I'll sit and understand the nuances that I don't know just yet. And then once I've mastered it, once I've gained or established credibility with the team, I can then start presenting some suggestions. Some of y'all don't want to do that. Some of y'all don't want to wait for that. Some of y'all want to, as soon as you see the problem, bop, here's how we fix it. Is it even important to fix? Is it urgent? The Eisenhower matrix, man, it works for a lot of things. I also go by this framework. Does it need to be said? Some of y'all know this by now. Does it need to be said now? And does it need to be said now by me? There's some things that you don't even need to address, even though it does need to be addressed and urgently. Might be something that you need to tell someone else in order for it to happen. If some of you are confrontational like I am, you might have a little struggle with, does it need to be said now by me? Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. Calm down. Sit down. No, relax. Right? So you want to establish credibility first. And the way that you establish credibility is by, and I know follow the rules sounds so constraining, restricting. Master. Want to master the rules. You master the rules by following them. And then you can break them. The other thing too, though, is, especially when it comes to leadership, they're always going to talk about reducing risk. The mitigation of risk is definitely one. Because when you make informed decision making, so understanding how things operate within established infrastructures or procedures can help reduce those potential pitfalls. Ever came across somebody that said something and they're looking to change things up? I remember this, one of my jobs when I was in New York, having now been there for almost a year working with the director. And then there's the guy that comes in from the outside. I don't even know if he was an employee, not really a consultant, but somebody that, was coming in and he was bringing some ideas. You know what we need to do? We need to build this and do this. And it's so interesting because he sounded like me in month 1. Remember, I was still kind of working on that whole, I have ideas or things that probably could be implemented, but I needed to adjust and be patient and to learn the process. He sounded like me in month 1. And in month 1, when I was talking about all these things, my director was like, yeah, that's not going to work. But why not? Like, we have to, that's not how the structure works. So now, almost a year later, somebody else comes in. It's like, we got to do this and we should do this. And me and the director, we look at each other like, if only he knows. But it took me time to understand. Now, it's not that we were shitting on his ideas. We weren't doing that. But what we were doing is, at least for me, understanding that there's a particular structure, and the only way, not the only way, but some of the ways that it can work is not the ways that he was suggesting. Why? Because that's what I was trying to do when I first came into the job. And then I found innovative ways on making things happen within the current structure. Reducing the pitfalls. What else do we have here? Oh, strategic departures, because breaking rules selectively and with purpose is less risky than discarding all conventions indiscriminately. Some people, they just want to start over from scratch. I was probably one of those too. Just let the whole thing burn. Sometimes the whole thing does need to burn, but in reality, you've probably still got people on payroll. If you're running a sizable business or a business at all, then you probably can't let the whole thing burn, because then there are other people that are going to suffer, right? The point is, you want to make sure that when you're making these changes, just like what Picasso did, you're making these strategic changes, meaningful changes, because you know what works, you know what doesn't work, you know how the system, how the process, how everything works together. So you know what to add, delete, subtract. I guess deleting and subtracting is the same thing. Replace. Okay, what else? There's a cultivation of discipline that happens when you learn to master the fundamentals. Your creativity becomes structured. Some of the people that are the most prolific at what they do, meaning that they do a lot of it, whatever it is because they have structured creativity. Enforcing discipline around current norms teaches problem solving within constraints, leads to more elegant and robust innovative solutions. Also, the sustainability can be a little bit more long-term as well, because creativity without structure can yield short-lived results. So what discipline does is it promotes sustainable and also scalable growth. It can also reduce burnout. Prime example. We're going live every night, at least almost every night. I think I might have missed. I got to check. I might have missed like 4 nights. We're in day 16, 3 or 4 nights. And at some point, even in the beginning of the first week, I was like, first of all, I think it was one of the questions from one of our Brain Station alum actually asked, when's the next one? I was like, tomorrow, I don't know when, right? Then I realized the more that I'm doing it, I'm realizing, okay, I'm starting to find the sweet spot, y'all. Because what you don't know in the background is, as I'm live streaming, I'm also finding different ways of how I'm going to kind of structure my timing and all of that. That's like I'll pop on like at 8:23 or something like that, because I had just finished something else that was already a part of my routine. But I'm not gonna wait till 8:30 when I could just get on live right now, boom, and knock it out. So the point is, even for myself, I'm working out this structure, and it'll happen. It'll come with the consistency that's being built. I'm going to find the sweet spot. But what I'm not going to do, as we talked about the difference between overthinkers and high achievers, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to slip into the overthinking process of, so let me just sit down and think through and like plan what time should I do it. Yes, planning and all of that works, but sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to get into it and find out the sweet spot. What really works? Streaming for 15 minutes, streaming for an hour? Like, what is it that's going to work? What may work on a particular day might not work on a different day. You just got to dive in. And by diving in, you can create that discipline as well. But some of y'all ain't even diving into nothing. Start diving. Get into it so that you can start getting a feel for how you should structure the thing. Get out of your head. So that structured creativity cultivates discipline. Long-term sustainability. So once I now begin to do this thing, if I'm not careful, right? Like, let's say I start streaming like 2 hours a day, which is crazy. At least not yet, but right now it's crazy. There could be burnout. versus having a structure and saying, you know what, after this particular time or after this amount of time, depends on whatever it is, let's wrap it up and then let's start again tomorrow and let's maybe extend it or shorten it. Right. So you just gotta work. You just gotta work out like the different nuances of what's working, what's not working, what helps, what doesn't help. Um, Personally, especially for this year, that's going to create a new level of discipline that I had at some point. I had at some point with streaming, right? Um, so you just got to figure it out. I hate to say it, y'all, but y'all know that's one of my favorite phrases. Figure it out. By figuring it out, you also will develop discipline. You can't develop discipline by not executing anything. You got to do something in order for the discipline to take hold of it. Discipline has teeth. You need something to sink into. And then you can start shaping and reshaping and redefining and refining and making it more structured. All right. So building strong processes is another one. So for instance, operational efficiency is a huge one when you're starting to learn, right? By doing, integrating processes that work. So these proven processes, throwing away the processes that don't work before you start innovating. Why? Because remember, innovation is about lowering costs and making things more accessible, like at its root. And also maybe removing. So with that, it's going to come like removing certain parts of, let's say, a product or a service. Well, you got to know the service first before you start throwing things away, right? Now, you don't have to overthink and like, oh, well, if I remove this, then this is going to happen. And if I remove this, then this is going to happen. So I'm not really sure. At some point, you have to make a decision. And then you could put something back in when you need to put it back in. But the point is, you got to understand the process first. Understand your process first before you start switching stuff up. What is your process? What is your routine? What are some of the habits? Things that you do, just like, I don't really like this, so I think I'm going to change it. How does that connect with everything else that you're doing? Got to understand you before you start wanting to change you. Another thing is alignment with teams. This is a little broader when we're talking about innovation from now a more business perspective. Just kind of adhering to some framework. It keeps everybody on the same page. It reduces confusion, especially when rules do start to shift. Got to get everybody on the same page, right? And the other thing too is you can gain boundaries from or gain insights rather from boundaries. So you have more of a clarity in a sense on what to change. So when you know precisely what rules are hindering progress, hindering you from hitting your goals, which ones are beneficial, which ones weren't beneficial at all. When you start doing this, it becomes a crucial part of why it is that you need to master and follow the rules. The other thing too is just measuring success. Because when you establish a baseline, call that the status quo, that helps to measure innovative impact more concretely. It's more accurate. How do we know that it's working? Because this is how the process was before, and this is the results that it got. So by tweaking this or changing this, take a look at what happened. You can't really do that if you don't really know the process, which is why I do believe that a lot of people, like in certain roles, when let's say, I don't know, a direct report comes to them and have this new idea, but they were just on the job for a month or something like that. They're just like, yeah, he'll learn. He'll learn. It's cute. It's a nice idea, but he'll get it. All right, let's wrap this up with some strategic or C-level leadership application. First thing that we want to look at here is when it comes to and boiling down to like the strategic vision. Remember, C-suite people, a high level impact. So y'all got to think about vision and all that, right? And let's parallel it back to like Picasso. Similar to Picasso, C-level leaders should master their industry and their organizational processes before leading disruptive change. This is why when a startup becomes and gets to a certain point, not a plateau, but a certain point, they will remove the founder and they will put in a CEO, a seasoned CEO, which is typically somebody who is older. Why? It's not to say that, it's a biased or there's some sort of ageism or something like young people don't get it. No, but there is wisdom and experience that comes with just sheer time. So they'll put in somebody in their 50s, 60s who understands the business and can know how to keep the business sustainable and to grow it. Typically, the founder transitions out. This is like, if they're acquiring it or whatever, if they have, stakeholders and it becomes a little bit more sizable, the founder doesn't stay at the helm for long. He doesn't stay or she doesn't stay at the front of the ship. He's not steering the ship. She's not steering the ship for long. Because their gift, their skill set really typically, not every founder, but this is just, I'm giving you some generals here, but generalizations, they're good at starting the thing up, man. They're good at disrupting and toppling the apple cart of the conglomerate that was sitting fat for a while. Now it's time to bring in somebody who understands how to keep being disruptive. Founder may or may not stay. They might take on a different role, but at some point, if founder is truly a founder, they'll probably build another business. And I'm oversimplifying some things, but that is usually how it works. The founder becomes bored. Why? Because most founders are builders. They're not maintainers. CEOs are maintainers. Now, you can be innovative in your C-level role. I'm going to talk about that, right? But when we talk about like the generalities of particular roles, founders will be founders. They will build it, hand it over, build something else. Unless, because I know some people who they become founders and then they take a break and they become like a CEO. They kind of take a break, and so they go through this cycle of building, maintaining, and growing. Right. Also, from a C-level leadership perspective, risk management. Remember, risk management and governance is always going to be a part of those roles. So balancing innovation with regulation, where you have executives who you got to navigate legal, financial, reputational risks. And so when you know the rules of the game, those things become easier to balance. Also, investor confidence. Once again, remember that confidence piece. C-level leaders often face scrutiny from investors and boards. So they have a foundation of rule-based credibility. It helps to secure confidence in riskier ventures. I love the saying, this is not my first rodeo, right? Because it lets people know that you've done it before, you've seen things before, coming from humility, right? Coming from a humble place, but at the same time, it's like, this ain't my first one. But you need to master the fundamentals, the processes, the experiences of what it's like, so that you can gain confidence from people like the board and investors. Okay, some other things too. Organizational culture is a huge one when you're setting the tone. So leaders who respect established processes and protocols, they model behavior that fosters both trust and creativity. Think of Picasso. Fundamentals, and then you start to break certain things like, oh wow, this is refreshing. We never thought that you could do one-on-ones in this way. Well, first of all, there are one-on-ones that need to be had, right? Empowering teams is another big one when it comes to organizational culture. So when you demonstrate how to work within and around the rules, executives can then encourage measured experimentation and safe to fail environments, kind of like sandboxes, but with the real people, right? This is, and for those of you that don't know the term sandbox, it's usually like a web dev or a software engineering term, where you kind of can play around with a digital product and it doesn't break anything. It breaks. It's like a prototype. It's like a fictitious version of the real product, and so you can kind of just do virtually anything, and it won't impact anything in the real world. And this is where, if you're a C-level exec, you're able to do these things where you can understand the fundamentals and you can know where to strategically even place some of these safe to fail environments to test something out, like to pilot a new initiative. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you at least gave employees, especially the ones that feel like they're innovative, right? The room to do these things and to play around um, with these ideas or these initiatives that either they might have come up with or they might have been in, I don't know, some sort of um, innovative, you know, not silo. It's not the word I want to use, but um, sometimes they have like these innovative departments that kind of just test things out. Not R&D. It's like a different branch where they just kind of just test stuff out, right? Anyway, last but not least, just kind of driving sustainable growth here. C-level. You always want to focus on how do we grow, right? We've never really thought about like how do we make things small. That's usually not. So how do we grow, and then how can we keep the growth sustainable? So following the rules to create strong operational scaffolding. Love that word because it also implies frameworks. What it does is it ensures that disruptive ideas can be implemented at scale and also long-term viability. So rule following upfront paves the way for innovations that endure rather than short-lived break everything experiments. It sounds cute, or even when you like looking at certain movies and they're just breaking everything and they just found a way to make something work. Um, in reality, you gotta know you gotta know what works and what doesn't work, and that's when you really need to have a deep understanding of the rules first. All right, y'all. Listen, quick wrap up. We talked about Picasso. We talked about how his journey underlines the value of mastering the old before creating the new. We talked about Christensen's focus on disruptive innovation and how it shows that awareness of existing market rules is the key to actually rewriting them. And we also just covered whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or, remember my focus this year at least, is the C-level executive. So whether you're one or the other, following the rules first is not an act of complacency, y'all. It's not an act of submission in a sense or being lazy or close-minded, but it's a strategy for building the credibility. It's a strategy for building the discipline, strategy for insight that's necessary to have impactful innovation. So what I would suggest that you do is that you embrace existing frameworks, embrace the rules, embrace the structures, the processes that already exist to gain clarity on when and then how, if necessary, to disrupt it effectively. That's for innovators. And that could be for like the ICs, independent contractors or consultants, be for y'all. For the C-level execs, though, I would suggest leveraging foundational knowledge. Some of y'all need to brush up on how your organization works. It's just a reality. Once you do that, you have this understanding of sustainable, rule-informed creativity that you can then start to leverage and then make some strategic leaps forward. All right, y'all. That's it. I hope that this was insightful. One day, hey, listen, day 60. One day I'm going to look forward to somebody at least no, I did get some people from before. I did get some individuals before on other platforms actually dropping some love in the comments. But yeah, I'm looking for it. I know LinkedIn does. It's interesting. So on LinkedIn, it actually doesn't show activity on in the stream itself, but then afterwards, I'll get that. But the other ones, hey, where y'all at? Holla at me. We here. Drop something in the comments. I want to hear from you. Got any questions? Let's talk about it. You don't have to be a C-level person to drop a comment, by the way. So I don't know if like my focus on that is kind of, making that like a separator in a sense, but no, kill all that noise. Talk to me. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all in the next stream.